Hello, Shotmaker podcast listeners. I'm so excited for this week's episode. We are joined by the CEO of America's Best Restaurants, Matt Plapp. He became an accidental expert in digital marketing and later turned his attention to consulting. Matt has traveled to over 1,000 restaurants across the country to figure out what works and what doesn't when it comes to restaurant marketing. He now helps independent restaurant owners tell their story and build sales momentum. This episode gets really good, so stay tuned.
Hello, Shotmaker listeners. I'm so excited today to be joined by Matt Plapp, the owner of America's Best Restaurants. Matt, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. Quite an honor.
Yes, so I would love to dig into your story. I think you have an amazing presence online. People love following you. So can you talk us through a little bit about your story?
So I'm long-winded, so I'll keep it short. I started in media in 1997, 98 in college. My goal was to be the next great white hope on TV. And I came to find out after I got out of college and I was making like $6.75 an hour working on the newsroom floor for Channel 5 in Cincinnati that there wasn't really a lot of demand for white dudes on TV. And the guys that were in the department would walk me out because I interned there for like 2 years and then I was working there full time. I was actually working at 2 TV stations full time at one point because trying to make money. You know, $6.75 an hour doesn't go a whole long, big way. Yeah. And so they would walk me out to the parking lot and say, Matt, you see this side of the parking lot? Yeah. Those are nice cars, right? Yeah. That's the sales department. You see the crappy ones? Yeah. That's the on-air staff. Because even in Cincinnati, the majority of the on-air people weren't crushing it. So I eventually went to the place, job library at a local college, applied for every job I could find because I had to be in media. That was just my dream. Ended up getting the job in radio sales. My dad trained me for 3 weeks leading up to the first interview, and the rest is history. I learned marketing the grassroots way. You know, a lot of friends of mine that went the marketing route went to be marketing directors at brands. And like one of my friends told me, he's like, Matt, my entire first 4 years out of college was trial and error with a $30,000 a year budget for one little nonprofit. You were out on the streets talking to hundreds of business owners on a monthly basis and befriending them and finding out their radio, their TV, their billboards, direct mail, whatever. Along that same time, in 1999, my brother came home from the Navy and my dad wanted to do something with his boys. He was semi-retired and had an idea in the boat and RV business. And so he decided to start a company doing consignment boat and RV sales. I went out and bought a book on how to build a website, which I'm not a tech person. At least I guess I am now on accident, but I wasn't at all then. I used to make fun of my wife in college. I used to call her the email queen because if I couldn't find my then fiance, now wife in college, she was in a thing called the email lab. And I thought it was so lame. I'm like, just call somebody. It's stupid. And so I built the website. We took that company within 4 years from zero online, no physical presence, just listing boats like Auto Trader online for people to a $15 million a year with 3 location business. And I learned digital marketing there. And over the course of the early 2000s, became known in the industry as one of the first people to sell boats online. You know, Gary Vee's known for selling wine online. I was selling boats and campers all over the country online through our website. That always kept me in touch with my radio roots because for 4 years I did both. And then in 2003, I went to just run the family business. Me and my dad and brother were partners. And then in 2008, when the economy collapsed, that collapsed. But luckily, we had decided we were good timing. We had decided, good and bad. We had decided that we were going to get out of business late 2007 because it had gotten so big. The banks had gotten so stressful. We didn't know what was coming, which is why the banks got really stressful. Yeah. Went from calling us once a month to calling us every day. And we had $6 million in inventory a lot. There's a lot of money out there. So I had started doing consulting with the Reds and Bengals and small businesses in our region around the time of, I guess it was March, April of 2008. Wow. Well, that summer, the economy collapsed. Me and my dad each lost $1 million. My brother lost about $500,000 or $600,000. And I'm talking like cash. And there was no PPP. There was no idle. The bailouts went to Ford and GM and the banks. And so I had already launched my marketing firm. That kicked me out a lot faster because I thought I was going to be able to double dip. And 2008, we started what is our corporate name, Driven Media Solutions. And from 2008 to 2015, we worked with about 30 local businesses, including 9 restaurants. 2015, National Pretzel Day came along. I had a client that used to always hate that we use digital marketing and email and text messaging for his restaurants. Told me to prove it, that it worked. We did a Facebook and email promotion that drove 18,000 in trackable sales on one day by people walking in and showing the pretzel promotion on their phone. He called me that Monday morning and said, okay, I'll leave you alone. Apparently marketing on this thing called Facebook works. Right. And at that point, that was the first time I had seen that tangible of a result. I made a post, I sent an email, and it drove 18 grand in sales like that. And so with that, I started looking at it and said, okay, I can't replicate this to my car dealer client. There's no national oil change day, I don't think. Maybe there probably is.
That's a good idea.
I just created it. You're welcome, Jiffy Lube. But I started looking at it and I kept trying to think, okay, how can I, because I had always been thinking locally.
Yeah.
I developed a bunch of stuff over about a year's period. 2016, I met a business coach named Billy Jean Shaw in California, saw a Facebook ad, bought his flash drive, went to a course in California, and found that it never crossed my mind that I could pick up a restaurant in every city. Right. I just always thought locally. That's because I grew up in face-to-face sales. It never occurred to me that I could have a client in California. Well, 2016, 17, 18, we shifted to where we went completely restaurants. And here we are. That was just me and one employee back then. Now there's 44 or so people. We have hundreds of restaurants across the country, and we help restaurants. We call ABR, attract, build, retain. How do you attract the attention of your consumers on their on your website, on your social media, in your store? How do you take that attention and leverage it to build a database so that you're not constantly spending money to get people's attention over and over again? If I own your email, your cell phone, your birthday, I know that you're male or female, you're new, frequent, or lost, I can target you better. And then the last part is retention. How do we retain customers? And the best way to retain customers is to have conversations with them through digital marketing. So that's where we're at today.
That's an amazing story. And I think you've done so much for restaurants. Talk a little bit about COVID. Like, what was the COVID experience for you? Because I think you were right there on the front lines, just like everybody else.
So we were a little different, I think, because one thing that's weird in my industry, and I don't say this demeaning because it's just what I was, is that the only close competitors to our business for what we do with restaurants are small one-person agencies, what I was 7-8 years ago. And those people hunkered down, went to their house, didn't go anywhere, didn't know what to do. A lot of them didn't have the experience of a downturn. And then the other side of my business is not really competitive, but people compare us to, hey, I have a marketing side of Toast. I pay $75 a month. I get to use their email. I'm like, well, that's great. I'd rather have that software plus 3 people from my team that help you actually do it correctly. But when the pandemic hit, and that 2-week curve hit, I told all of our employees, number one, I said at that point, we had only done A and B. We weren't doing retention. We were just simply helping people attract attention, build a database. Here's your database, have fun with it. And the reason we did that was I didn't feel like investing in the people to distribute the restaurant's content, because my concept was, hey, you should be able to send an email or a text how we tell you to send it. Well, when and it kind of worked that way a little, but I also knew in the back of my mind that a lot of them weren't using the data correctly because I was on their email and text list. I wasn't seeing anything.
Right.
So when the pandemic hit, at that time, I think we had, 150, 200 restaurants. And so when the pandemic hit, I pulled all of our employees on a conference call and some of them in person to our office and said, hey, nothing's wrong. Nobody's getting laid off. Because that was the big thing I realized, that when the 2008 hit, we went out of business. Like we didn't know what was going to happen. July of 2007, we did 1.4 million in sales. July of 2008, we did 48 grand.
Wow.
The economy crashed in some places. In the boat and RV business, the banks were told by the government, you cannot give a loan on a recreational vehicle. So we crashed hard. I'm talking $1 million. My personal financial bank account, everything gone. And I was 32 and I'm like, who gives a shit? I'll do it again. My dad was 62 and I was more concerned for him, but we figured it out. Yeah. And so when this happened, I told my employees, I said, hey, I think this is going to be a couple-month thing. We've got enough money to last the way our currently staffed about a couple years. So we're fine. Nobody's getting fired. Nobody's getting laid off. we're actually going to expand, because the problem I see now is these restaurants weren't using data before.
Yeah.
Now they desperately have to use it. How do you order online? The biggest misconception in the consumer's minds, people don't realize this. A lot of consumers thought restaurants were physically closed.
Right.
We heard that a lot. Like, people think we're not open. And so it's like, hey, we had restaurants. I think I had 1 or 2 clients that did this like for 60 days, an email or a text every day. Because they said, what's your advice? I said, I don't think people are going to be pissed if you over communicate right now, because it's desperate times and you can have fun with it. And they were doing fun stuff. But we had a lot of clients. We said, hey, whatever you need, we're here for you. We know we don't manage your email and text now, or in the past, but we are now. There's no extra charge. And I kind of said it in a way because I didn't want to tell everybody you don't have to pay, because that would hurt our company. But I kind of let them know that canceling is not an option. If you think you need to cancel, call me personally. And when they would call me, I'd say, hey, dude, I lost it all in 08. I know what you're going through more than anybody else, and you're going to get through it. Don't worry about paying us. You pay us when you can down the road. Yeah. And we had about 15 clients take us up on that. And then we only had 2 clients that never came back. One client I never have heard from, he just literally disappeared. And then one client ended up was a jackass to my employees. After 3 months of helping him for free, just kept getting really, just the way he would treat a couple of our female employees. I'm like, bro, I don't play that. Like, we're done. Yeah. So all those, everybody still exists today client-wise. And so we just helped them, distribute content. And so when that happened, we had a bump like everybody else. Our revenues were down 28% to 50% for about 2 months. And then we rebounded. And within 6 months, we had tripled in size. And, we have now, I think employment-wise, we're like 4 times what we were. We grew by 89% 2 months ago, 86% the month before that, 67% last month. Right now, as of June 3rd? As of June 3rd, we are 50% above last year. And we usually, the way our revenue stacks, that means we'll probably end up June about 128% up from last year.
Wow.
So another thing in there too is I did the opposite. And I've had people that, it depends what side of the ball you're on with COVID and all this stuff. I traveled more. We took literally 2 weeks off. When March hit, we had 2 weeks off because we didn't know what was going on. I was back on the road the second week of April. And I literally was on an empty plane one time from Philadelphia. You're in Philly still, right?
Yes.
So I'll never forget, David, my marketing director, lives in Philly. And I want to say this was like July or August of that year. And we pull up to the Philly airport and we look in and it's like empty.
There's no one there. I know. It was crazy.
I said, hey, don't leave yet. I think it's closed. It's like, there's no way. I'm like, there's literally
nobody there.
I went in, I opened this big door. I go, hello? And this guy goes, yeah, the airport open? Yeah, okay. I walked from that point. I saw that guy, 2 people working security, and the gate agent. I was on the plane alone. So we continue to travel because my whole philosophy with my company is one of the reasons I know we're the best marketing company for independent restaurants around, is that we're boots on ground. I went to 1,000 restaurants in the last 2.5 years. And it wasn't until this past February where I decided I was done traveling. My team can travel. I'm going to stay home and work on the company in the office.
Yeah. But that's amazing. And I think, what you do for restaurants is so unique that you're right. There really is no comparison. But I agree. I think, my background, I started accounting in 2007. And like you, I think the people who had been through 08 knew a lot more about 2020. There just were like a lot of similarities. So like, this is what we're not going to do because we kind of saw what happened before. And I think you're right that one of the things that I think has made the hospitality industry stronger than a lot of other industries is people kept working. Like, you couldn't say no and just walk away. Like, you had to keep fighting every day. And so there was a lot of opportunity, which is amazing. So what do you think about what's going on now? I mean, it feels like for hospitality, people are back, their customers are back, but now there's a little bit of uncertainty. Yeah. There's obviously supply chain, there's labor. I mean, it seems like people are very uncertain now in the industry. And yet at the same time, technology and marketing and communicating, seems to be at the forefront now more than it ever has been.
I think, and I'm not an economical person or a political person. I don't watch the news. I've been on ESPN's the only website I've been to on purpose in probably the last 9 months, 10 months. And I only go to it probably once every couple of days. And I don't even know why, because I don't give a shit about sports anymore. But it's like, hey, I got to do something on my phone. But I feel like what I saw happen was that when the restaurant part went way down and restaurants got rid of employees because they didn't know what was going on, is a lot of those people found jobs other places like the construction industry or home, housing things, and realized, oh, okay, I can work 8 to 5 now, Monday through Friday. No more late nights, no more this. Now, I think that they're going to have their year or two run of that. And they're going to realize how beat up their knees and back and shoulders are, and they'll come back. But I also think it shined a light on a lot of people that, like the guy that was shitty to my employees. The stuff he said, I'm like, dude, we've been helping you for free for like 90 days.
Right.
Like, this is the attitude you give that person. Like, I'd hate to see what would you be saying if you'd be paying me. You're going to shoot us in the cut. And I think there's a lot of people in the restaurant space specifically that probably shouldn't have owned businesses. I also have a background in the gym business. For 9 years, I owned a gym. I actually just exited it end of last year. And it's not hard to start a gym. And, the other day, one of my sales guys was talking to this restaurant owner, and he was telling him like, oh, we don't have any money. They just opened a brand new location. He's like, we don't have any money to market, which cracks me up. But my dad's like, how did they open a restaurant and have no money? I said, well, I'll read between the lines and we'll ask the question. And I was right. I guarantee you, another barbecue place went out of business. The guy approached him 5 miles away and said, I've got a spot. It's laid out like your footprint. I'll do the build out. I'll eat the first 6 months. We'll do the sign for you. You come in, because the guy said he had no cost. My dad couldn't comprehend that. How does he have no cost? And it turned out that's what it was. Yeah. This guy got a free pass, basically going to a restaurant. And there's a lot of people that have fallen into those opportunities even before the pandemic. I mean, when a space is already built out for a fast casual Mexican restaurant that goes out of business, they find somebody else to do one. And the barrier to entry is not as big as it is to open a boat dealership. Right. Let's face it, you got a boat dealership like we did with a 13,000 square foot facility, 10 mechanics, $6 million in boats in inventory. It takes some capital, some balls, and some sleepless nights to pull that trigger.
Yeah.
And I feel like there was a lot of people in the restaurant space from a operations and management standpoint that weren't the right people and still aren't. And people don't want to work for them. I told a guy the other day, I'm like, dude, if I look at your restaurant, if I was a restaurant right now, I would not have a sign that says now hiring. Because guess what? Every restaurant in town is hiring. Right. And everybody knows it. Right. But what I would do is be doing stuff online and in person that separates me. Like today, my team, I just got done Venmoing $250. We do a thing called the money bucket. And I'm out of town today, so my team did it. Where the certain part of our team, 11 people, when they complete a task every week, they get a name in a bucket. And then we take, and this week was $700, got put into a bucket, and they come in at 2:30 and they have a huge hoorah. And hey, Austin, you got 4 pulls. Austin walks up, pulls money out. There's hundreds, there's tens, there's 50s. One guy got $180 today.
Wow.
And that's the stuff that they go home and they're excited. And their buddy's like, dude, man, what are you so excited? Well, he said the money. What's the money bucket? And then he's like, oh shit, I got to work there. Yeah. I get applications 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day on it some days. And we do not market for the most part. Occasionally I'll put something out there. Whereas restaurants, the person leaves and goes home and they complain about their boss, about the customers, about their fellow workers, about the conditions, about all this other stuff. Who the hell wants to go, well, I'm not working there.
Right.
And so I think that's a big problem in the business, is that it's not marketed correctly. There's huge opportunities. Like, I can't tell you the number of clients, and you see this too, the number of people I talk to go, man, how'd you get in the business? Started as a dishwasher 25 years ago. And I guess the ultimate American dream. There's a lot of opportunity to own your own business. Yeah. And so I think that's a big element of it. I think we're all this summer, like it is, every couple of years when gas prices go through the roof and our government does whatever they want to do to squash the economy and, make them look great when voting comes around again. That all goes through a cycle. So I think we're going through that, and it happens ahead, of course, when Memorial Day hits, we're at gas all-time prices. It's like, hey, we've seen this one before.
I know. Exactly. We've been down this road, so that's okay. We know it'll come out at the other side. But I think you're 100% right. Because I think what I see a lot of times, especially with marketing, is people feel like, oh, my customer is not back, or I don't know who, it's very uncertain. But then you ask them how much do you spend on marketing, and they haven't spent anything in 2 years.
Yep.
And it's like and marketing is such an important element in your business. What do you think an average restaurant should spend or do every month to improve their marketing?
So it's a trick question, because here's the problem, I think, with a lot of people. 3 to 5% is what I hear from most people way smarter than me. But I also look at it this way. If I spend 5% of my money to market my business, I'm probably going to struggle to keep up with normal growth. My company, we spend about 5 times, sometimes 10 times what my friends who are in the exact industry spend on marketing. Why? Because I don't want to grow by 5%. I want to grow by 30%. And I know that right now, with how our business is, I'm growing my company at 80 to 90% a month in probably the hardest time the restaurant business has ever seen. If the people we talk to on a consistent basis, had a restaurant from Milwaukee yesterday that wanted to work with our company, said, nobody's coming downtown yet. We want to do what you're doing. We just have not, people do not come downtown. So we're not, it would make no sense to market right now, because the environment downtown, which I completely get, there's sometimes I'll say, hey, throw the towel in. I'm all for trying. But if nobody is physically coming downtown because of the environment of shootings and riots and shutdowns and everything else, sometimes you got to just say, let's wait it out. But there's so many instances like that we hear now, that restaurants don't have the proper staffing to market correctly. They don't have they just don't have all these things happening. But I look at it that if I was a restaurant right now, I would be spending 10% of my revenue. Because number one, you got a lot of great revenue the last couple of years. I guess not even revenue, a lot of money from the government the last 2 years out there that's helped you. You want to do something, be aggressive. I remember I talked to one restaurant owner when the pandemic hit, because I have friends of mine that were laid off in radio and TV because the big boys weren't buying TV and radio. So one restaurant I know went to the local TV station and said, here's 10 grand a month. I want this much, and got 10 times the inventory normally. Right. He's like, why not? Nobody else is. There's more of a pie to have. And so that's a big thing. I have an email I got to answer today, probably tonight, to one of my team members. One of our restaurant clients in California is about 550 customer transactions a week right now. He needs to be at 700. That's where he should be in his mind, and he's not there. And so we talked about it. He's actually taken the bull by the horns and done more marketing. But I told Scott, I said, I want you to pull up everything. I want his average week. Facebook posts, Instagram posts, live videos, emails, text, opens, clicks, everything we can find data. And what I'm going to do is I'm putting a formula together tonight. I'm going to call the guy and tell him, hey, you're uncomfortable with what I'm going to tell you. Because I'm going to basically give you, instead of, like I did personally yesterday, my brand on just Facebook, I had 12 posts on Facebook.
Wow.
I could have did 2, could have did 1. But I'm like, okay, I have a reach between email, text, Facebook, Instagram, all the places. I can reach about 100,000 people. But I also know that only about 2 to 5% are going to see it because of the algorithm or because of open rates or clicks. So I look at it. Yesterday, we did an email. Tomorrow, there's another email. It segments the database. We had between TikTok, because I'm on TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Twitter, Instagram stories, Facebook stories, LinkedIn, and our blog every day. And so if we put 10 pieces of content across those 10 platforms, that's 100 pieces of content. And so this restaurant, my comment to him is going to be, and I'm going to give him such a task that I know he'll only do 30% of it. So that's why it's going to look way worse. And I'm going to say, dude, if you do these, I want you to make 15 posts a day. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. Here's the topics. I'm cheating. I'm giving him the topic. I'm giving him the stories, because I've got a theory. If you're a restaurant owner, your friends and your family would eat at your restaurant the most frequent of anybody else, right? And so my goal is to help restaurants create more friends. And the way you create more friends is by them knowing you. And I get this idea from back in the boat days. Guy named Earl Bentz owned Triton Bass Boats. He started Hydrosport, Stratus, huge name in the bass boat world. I happened to be friends with Earl back then because we were his number 3 dealer. We spent about $6 million a year with him. So we became friends. Well, one of the common things in the boat business, when you're in Kentucky, Indiana, where they're all made, a lot of the bass boats, is like, oh, I can get a boat from the factory, which is bull crap. It's illegal. It doesn't happen. But that's this misnomer. This guy walks in one day. He's like, hey, Matt, I'm here to buy a Triton bass boat. It's all I'll buy. It's my favorite brand. but I could buy it from the factory, but I want to support you locally. I'm good friends with Earl Bentz. I go, oh, cool. Earl's a buddy of mine. I said, I pay Earl $6 million a year to be a friend. How do you know him? And he's like, well, let me tell you the story. Well, he goes on to tell me this 20-minute story that no shit, at the very end, the way he knew Earl was that he was at the chain link of a fence. Earl was behind it, walking at the Bassmaster Classic, the big event every year. And he looked and said, Earl, and he goes, hey, brother, walked up, shook his hand. How you doing? That's how he knew Earl. But that guy was in my store buying a Triton because he was friends of Earl. So my goal, like with John, the guy I'm going to send this to, is, hey, I'm going to give you a formula that if you will create these 4 to 5 videos and 5 to 6 other posts a day, your customers and people around your restaurant will get to know you. And when they get to know you and your kids and how your son just had shoulder surgery and he's in the military and your wife and all this stuff, they're going to want to do business with you more than they will the person they've never met at the chicken place down the street. And so when I look at advertising, you ask that question, I told you I was long-winded. When you ask about advertising, I look at it as 2 ways. Number one, your budget should be double what you think it should be. And number 2, your effort should be about 30 times more. Because it's just like I said, my background's in the fitness world. It's just like fitness. That if you go to the gym, like the last 2 years, I fell out of a routine of like being excited about working out. I still went to the gym 5 days a week. I have a gym in my house. We have a gym at our office I just built. And we have a gym that I used to be a partner in, but I'm a lifetime member of. I still worked out, but it wasn't very good. I quit running. I quit doing mobility. I quit doing some things that helped me. I didn't gain a ton of weight. Unfortunately, I had enough momentum going, but I saw it stack up. And so if you eat shitty, you run less, and you work out less and work out with less intensity, you gain weight, which is why I gained about 10 pounds of body fat the past 12 months. Whereas over the next 12 months, I'm going to run 3 to 4 times more than I did the last year. I ran 2.5 miles yesterday. It's the longest I've run in a long time at one time. I'm going to work out with more intensity, which I had looked at my schedule and figured out my problem was I was getting to the gym at 6:15 after working 4 a.m. to 6 and going to the gym. Now I'm leaving at 3:45 and taking care of me, because the better I am, the better our company is. And so if I stack running more, doing more mobility, doing more yoga, swimming more, and eating better, in a year, I won't have 10 more pounds of fat. Well, look at it with your marketing. If you take your emails and your texts and all these things are free. That's what's comical. My background in radio and TV and marketing back in the 90s, nothing was free.
Right.
Think about it. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube Shorts. What is it? You got, what's that one place? Nextdoor. You got the Reddit, email, text.
Right. Free.
Basically no cost. That's why I always crack up when people tell me they can't afford our company. I'm like, we're $500 a week. So you've got employees making $300 to $400 a week washing dishes. Right. You tell me for $500 a week, you can't afford the best minds in restaurant marketing to make sure your shit doesn't suck. And they go, that's a good point. But they're also accustomed to not spending money.
Yeah.
And the effort.
Yeah. No, I mean, that is such great advice. I love, especially the aspect of your marketing budget based on your growth goal. Because you're right. If you're looking to blow up the way that your company looks in your town or whatever, you can't spend 5% and get that to happen. So
what? June 18th, I've got a Tough Mudder. So I wanted to get back in shape. I looked back. I looked at historical and said, when was Matt Plapp in his best shape? I was in my mid-late 30s, and I was doing like 4 or 5 Tough Mudders a year, half marathons, CrossFit 5 days a week. I was in I had a 6-pack, which I don't know how, but I did. And I looked back and said, okay, so 2 months ago, I'd signed up for Tough Mudder. I got 4 people from my team to sign up. Well, I looked at it and said, oh shit, that's like a half marathon in the woods. And the good thing about them is you actually run like a mile and a half, stop for an obstacle, run a mile. There's a lot of stops, so it's not consistent. So it's easy to run a half marathon. But I made a schedule. And I knew that in order for me, June 18th, to not die, I needed to be able to run 4 miles at one point. So that's why yesterday's run was 2.5 miles. This Sunday's run will be about 2.5 miles. Next week, I'll hit 3. And by the week of the Mudder, I'll be doing 4. Well, it's the same with your marketing. That if you don't work up, if you don't put in the effort that allows you to attain that sales goal, you're not going to get there.
Yeah, that is so good. This has been such a great interview. I think you've shared with people so many very useful tips. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about your services?
So mattplapp.com is the easiest place to find me. americasbestrestaurants.com is our company website. And there's two divisions. We are creating, I don't know if you know this or not, because I don't talk about it a whole lot, but we're creating a network for independent restaurants where my vision is that in 5 years, consumers will go to americasbestrestaurants.com to find a restaurant in their backyard they should eat at. We're right around 1,000 restaurants. We visit in person. We film a 15 to 20 minute interview with one of our hosts. And then the other side of it is those restaurants would help getting that story out. That's what our company specializes in, is helping marketing. But that's the way to find us. And that's kind of what we do.
I love that idea. That is awesome. Because I think what you've done visually is so good. So truly appreciate you taking the time today and wish you nothing but the best.
Cool. I appreciate it.